Ben, this is obviously a very like big and squirrely type of topic, and I know we're a little bit all over the place, and
Mhm.
I really appreciate you being willing to sort of walk us through like the actual, real, serious, important stuff, while being willing to kind of dumb it down and field some of our questions as we try to wrap our head around all of this. Can't help but feel like we keep like zooming in and zooming out and zooming in.
Mhm.
But with that in mind, there's a idea that I've seen floated in a couple of different papers that I was hoping you could kind of walk us through or weigh
Mhm.
in on to a certain extent, that somewhat suggests that genetics and phenotypes are something like a hardware structure for our what I'll call our sexuality or our biological sex. And I'm using that term like perhaps fallaciously and very softly, but our actual anatomy might be constructed largely out of those things, but that it's also very possible that somewhere along the line in the process, our hormones might come in and sort of flip a switch in our software, in our brain development, that leads to a gender that might be somewhat discordant with our biology, with our like hardware. Is that software hardware disconnect at all an accurate way of perhaps beginning to understand transgender identities, or is that totally off the mark?
I mean, it's possible. It's very difficult to touch into something like that because it again, people looking for these kinds of answers might be ending up at a place of trying to look for a hormone imbalance to treat someone's uh, gender identity disorder or transsexualism as if it's some kind of disease, which we're doing a really good job trying to get out of that line of thinking.
Hmm.
Um, we don't really know what causes somebody to be trans or to have gender dysphoria or to have some discordance with their body and their gender identity. Um, it's interesting listening to other trans people and their experience with their gender. And this kind of topic, I'm going to talk more from my own experience and my friend's experience because I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't want to
Hmm.
talk too in depth on something that I haven't really read up on. But from my own experience, uh, I know that people have said that they believe that people who are trans men have high levels of testosterone or low levels of estrogen or something, and that trans women are the opposite. Um, and it's been posited as well. I've heard people say that sexuality is similar, and it's really problematic to be thinking that way. But also, I found it to be incorrect in that so I have only been on testosterone for about 7 months now, and before then, when I presented feminine, I had I'd taken the lesbian label for a while. It didn't really fit, but I knew I was attracted to women, and especially like feminine presenting people. And then it was funny because I started on testosterone, and now I'm suddenly really sexually attracted to men. So the fact that male hormones made me more gay is interesting to me. Um, but I don't really know the biological basis for why we feel differently in response to these hormones. But I personally, estrogen and progesterone make me very sad and make me very depressed. And uh, talking with my friends who are trans women, they've said the exact opposite, that testosterone has made them depressed and that estrogen and progesterone have made them very happy. And I cannot wrap my mind around the fact that estrogen could make anybody feel happy, like, because that was never my experience. And probably the same that they view testosterone. Like, testosterone has changed my life in so many beneficial ways. And I don't know necessarily why that is. But it has, and it's something that people want a scientific answer to a lot of things, and with something like gender that is very specific to a person and can be very fluid and doesn't really have a set meaning to it. I mean, after all, like, what is a man? What is a woman? Like,
How do you
beyond
find that control group? Yeah.
Yeah, like what
That's
is that?
tough.
Because
That's
everyone's
tough.
experience, everyone's experience is different. And if you were to ask somebody define a man, you can't really. I mean, you can say a list of things that might be more masculine, but you find women that like those things too. So does that make you a man? Like, what makes you a man? It's really difficult to say that. So I think maybe like it's better to not have a scientific answer in that, I think.
Oh, that's so zen.
It is a little
No,
bit.
I do appreciate that. You know, people will come into my counseling office saying like, I don't know, maybe I'm trans, like maybe I don't know, I'm questioning. I've never really felt like a man, or I've never really felt like a woman, and I obviously take those questions very seriously, but I also have to gently remind people that I don't necessarily know what being a man feels like, you know, or what being a woman feels like. I certainly experience my gender in some ways that I really enjoy, in some ways that I, you know, often don't. And, you know, there's a very complex interplay there. But if you are looking for a box that you can check off, or something that you can like really put your finger on, you just have to embrace the mystery of life and sort of the ineffability of being a human being. I know that we're kind of blending philosophy and science and
Well, you check the
sociology
box
with
that makes you feel
genetics.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No.
I mean, there are so many things that we are touching on here, but before I let Nate grab another phone call, I just wanted to ask if there were any other factors, or if there were any factors that we could point to that might help us to understand sort of the like the physical and the medical and the biological underpinnings of gender. I mean, hormones are in there, genetics are in there. What do we know about how these things maybe lead to gender?
I mean, we don't know much, and that's interesting. It's an interesting place for us to admit that we don't know and we don't have an answer, and maybe science will have one at some point. But even just within the medicine of understanding a person who is trans and having very beneficial treatments such as hormone replacement therapy and gender confirming surgeries, we have evidence that shows the most effective method to treat gender dysphoria is by transition. So if people want to point to the science, like, okay, we could have this mental masturbation, if you will, about like what is the key thing that makes you like male or female. But at the end of the day, it's what makes me happy to be alive and happy to be me. My psychiatry attending this past month, because I was on pediatric psychiatry, and something that he said that really resonated with me about my own experience with gender and my transition is that you are the only person that's going to be with you for every moment of your life. You're going to wake up to yourself every single day. Are you happy with the person you're waking up with? And thinking about that, like in my pre-transition state, I was not happy with the person I woke up to every day. And the things that hormones have done for me, I'm happy now. I'm happy to wake up being me. If I had to go, and this is truth, I'm going to have to go the rest of my life being me, with me in this body, even with certain modifications, it will still be my body. I'm happy with it. I'm happy to go through that journey and seeing the practical application of getting off of our high horses, being like, what is it like mean to be a certain sex or gender? The end of the day, the answer is figuring out how to help people have a positive existence on this earth. And right? Do we? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
It's not about who has a penis or who has a vulva. It's not about who has this hormone level or that hormone level, or who is as swift as a coursing river, or who has all the force of a great typhoon. It's just about how to be a person and how to be happy being it. I really, really love that answer.
That was a great answer. And I'd also like to point out that mental masturbation is the second best kind of masturbation.
I don't know. I think we could debate the rankings, and I don't know. We should probably do another erotic hypnosis episode before we get too much further down this road.
I'm down for it, Christy. Let's do it.
But
I'm not paying you though, pro bono.
I meant for the show, an episode of
for the
show.
show. Oh, for the show.
Yeah, right. That show that we're doing right now.
Wait, we're on a show?
We're on a show? What?
Not
No,
just
we're
us
not.
getting drunk and talking about gender. It's actually a call-in show